All right, I think we're recording now. Okay, this is team 3 with Jason, Keri, Wanling, and Jill. This is for milestone 3. Part of milestone 3 is to summarize in story mode of milestone or mini challenge 1. And the way that we came up with clusters is we plotted the total times in the park by each visitor ID and the amount of check-ins they had, as well as their times of check-in. And we clustered them based on those variables. And immediately we were able to see some unique clusters, such as cluster 32, and some really high check-in, high total time, like in cluster 39. One of the main clusters that we saw was cluster 32, which we called Bodyguards of Scott Jones. These 7 IDs took the same route every single day and went only to check in at the Greenosaurus stage where the Scott Jones event took place. If we look at Sunday, Friday, Sunday, and Saturday, they all took the same route every single day. So, and their check-in times into Greenosaurus stage are consistent throughout the 3 days, except for Sunday, right after the crime where the event is canceled, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But yeah, everything was consistent with their movement data, check-in data, and event times. So we think they're the Scott Jones bodyguards. Another group we looked at was throat addicts. Nine IDs really loved the roller coaster alley and the wetlands, and a little bit of Tundraland, but very little Kittyland. So we think they are teenagers or young adults that spend a lot of time in the roller coasters, not really the Kittylands. Tour groups evenly distributed in the 4 lands. These group of 22 really, we think are tour groups because they have low variance between all the groups. And generally when you're in a tour, they wanna go to all the places at equal amount of times. And their check-ins for all 3 days are fairly consistent with when how tour groups would do. So this one we looked at, we think are season pass holders. They go to a lot of the rides fairly consistently. And they even go to the museum at Creighton Pavilion. We don't think they have anything to do with the crime, but they also, one interesting note was that they leave, most of them leave before 3 p.m. And as season pass holders, you would just go in for a couple of rides and then leave because you have no fear of missing out on using your ticket. And they all leave before most of them 3 o'clock because they come back another day and just ride the other rides as much as their heart's content. This is a group of 2, and we dubbed them the couple. They come in and check in at every single place at the exact same times. They check in to the park at the exact same time, and they visit the same rides at the same times. So we think that they are either a couple, 2 close friends, or they just came together, and they have they're most likely teenagers or young adults or older adults, not kids, because they have essentially 0%, less than 1% check-in at Kittyland. And this shows all the same check-ins between the 2, and they overlap, so we know that they came together and they traveled together. Efficient riders, this group of 1,408 are efficient riders down here. They have a fairly good amount of check-ins, but one of the lowest total time spent in the park. So we think that they are one of those people that have to get the most out of their rides or most out of their tickets, and they check into as many rides as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible. And this graph shows the consistent check-ins throughout the 3 days with little time for break or breathing room. There are huge spikes on different hours, but you can see there's very little time for breaks. This group of 45 people only check in on the weekends. So they could be only a weekend tour group or families on vacation that only come on the weekends. But we think they're weekend tour groups because they only check in on the weekends. We see that they spend a large amount of their time in check-ins because, or we know that they have a lot of time in the check-ins, And this may indicate that they could have issues in the check-in, and tour group leaders could potentially take them to the most popular rides first, such as the wetlands and the roller coaster alleys. For question number 2 in mini challenge 1, we noticed that data or movement data on Fridays have the lowest percentage, and it steadily increases. Not only if there's a difference, total movements increases over the day, and Friday only accounts for 25% and 23% of check-ins and movements for 3 days. It makes sense because most families and most patrons really go on the weekends and rarely go or barely go on weekdays. This line graph shows the trends of movements over the hours over the weekend. There's a noticeable drop in movement when there is an appearance for Scott Jones, shown here at the 9 o'clock a.m. hour and the 1400 hour. Except for Sunday, when after the crime, we noticed a huge drop of movement. Just we think because of the crime, and people moved away from the park because perhaps there was police presence or whatever it may be. And we will talk about that corresponding to communication data later. Anomalies for the data. We noticed that in the Galactus Rage ride, there was no zero check-ins between 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. We think that there could be operation error, or the ride is closed for maintenance, stuff like that. But there is consistent check-ins throughout the rest of the weekend, so that's an inconsistency. Continuing, in the Grinosaurus stage, Grinosaurus stage is only open for Scott's event, but we noticed that there were small check-ins or a small amount of check-ins before the second event on Friday and after the second event on Saturday. There shouldn't be any events. There could be, it could be maintenance or staff or janitors or staff cleaning up, but we don't see that type of data bumps before the other events. So that could be something to note. And the last anomaly is the Scott Jones's bodyguards group check-ins. Consistent check-ins for the event times except for Sunday, where the second event was canceled, perhaps probably due to the crime occurring at the Creighton's Pavilion, canceling the second event on Sunday. Moving on to challenge 2. If that would work. We noticed that for communications, there were 11 IDs that went to Scott Jones event 3 times. Generally, if you're a fan of someone, you'll go once, maybe twice with a friend to let them know about it. But these IDs went all 3 days at least once. So we took a special interest in these. Could these be accomplices to the crime? Maybe. This could be recon work, or maybe there's just huge fans. We took a look into that further on. And something's happening with that. For the next anomaly, we saw that these 2 IDs had a outlier amount of communications. 1278894 had over 190,000 communications, as well as 839736. They had over 60,000 communications. And taking a little closer look, we noticed that the 839736 have very little communication until right around the time of the crime. So they could mean 2 different things. One, they heard about the crime and they started messaging everyone, "Oh my God, look at this! There's a lot of police presence," stuff like that. Or they could be the mastermind behind the crime and sending out text messages about how successful it was. And this one could be doing recon work, texting the group of accomplices about how the event will go down. And then Wanling will talk about further patterns regarding communications. Wanling, can you share?
Yes, let me choose this one. Okay. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Can you? So for the communication, I created the small pillars for the different location to see the what's the communication pattern is. So it turns out the Kitten land has like the very steady communication patterns, and then due to the 11 a.m. and the 4 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays, and the Coastal Alley has like the peak time during those two moments. And due to the entering corridor, I saw there's like a repeated the patterns during this moment. It's kind of like from 12 to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 5, and 6 to 8, 8 to 9. So it's kind of like every other hour. And I also noticed there's like a massive spike in communication at 12 p.m. on Sunday at the wetland and entering corridor. So I think that's probably the reason why they closed on Sunday. For communication and attraction, I also compare which location they have like the greatest, the highest communication. So it turns out it's like the wetland, and as I just mentioned, the Kitten land has like a very stable, the same as the entering corridor. And for the communication and the location, so we can also so this the Friday has the less communication, and the Sunday and Saturday the weekend have the most, and also it's get gathered at the wetland. For the ID communication, so there's the two highlights ID, which is the different one is the 1278894. So we can see it reached the peak on the Sunday before around the 12 o'clock, and that's also my assumption why it's probably there's the vandalism or happens before they close it. And also this ID has like a very repetitive patterns on each day between those like 12 to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 8 hours, and the same as another ID is 8. Where's that? Another ID. I couldn't find it. Will I find it? The other ID is the 839736, and this one, oh yeah, this one reached the peak to the wetland, and another 1278894 has repeated the patterns during the 3 days. And I also can use the box plot to see the communication in a different location area, and it turns the tuna land and the wetland has the higher median and higher range during the weekend. On the last part, I use this. I just found during the pattern like between 10 to like the ID 18521 and a 19509. There's some breaks between 2 to 4, and they have the similar like pattern. So that time it's turned out like the Jones Scott has the event during that time. So the less communication between when the John Scott has the event, and then I will give the next Keri Keri's terms to continue the presentation.
I'm going to call this first group the communicators. This is their outbound information to people at their counts of the communications that they made. I'm calling them the communicators because I think that they're leaders in their group, maybe their tour groups. You can see here at the end of the day, I noticed that these are probably some stragglers. And I'm guessing that these big blanket blasts they sent out are probably saying, get on the bus or we're leaving you. Because you can see here that this is the response to them. And there's a smaller number at the end of the day. And they're probably like, wait, would be, I guess, the response to it. For this one, I have few versus other. Towards the end of the spectrum, there's many people that don't really seem to use the app at all to communicate. We're talking like 0 to 1 conversations during the day. So they're using it more, I think, as a check-in tool, but this is the larger curve of people, how they're using it. And this is the people that's probably about half of the visitors that are not using it as much. But even here, you can see a spike at 11 o'clock that is probably people, they're getting the news of the vandalism. And even if you compare Sunday here to Saturday, you're going to see that there's more communication even from the people that were pretty silent before. This is communication by area, and you'll notice that it's saturated around Sunday at 12. Everybody, I think, was communicating about there was a spike from the 2 largest user IDs that was probably creating some of it, but there was a lot of back and forth and gossip about it. Let's see here. And then to go back to the cluster I examined about the family day at the beach group, you can see here, I thought this was a pretty good example here of this person, just one member of the group is very interested in telling one of the communication IDs that, that they're responding to them a lot. And then it looks like maybe they're getting good information from that, one of those IDs that's sending out a lot of information. And these are all external, as you can see, so they're probably passing on the hot gossip to their friends that might not have made it to the park that day. So I'll turn it over to Jill.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Got it.
Okay. Very good. So I decided to go do a deeper dive into the clusters that we had identified in the mini challenge 1. And it was easily identifiable to see what the top few were and the bottom like 4 or 5 were. And so I wanted to see a little bit more information of the time of day and the location of where these high communicators and low communicators were over the weekend. And I looked into about 8 different ones, but this is the one that I found to be most suspicious. And it's cluster 49. There's only, I believe, 10 members in this cluster. And you'll see here that there's really like a flat line, nothing too much going on in the rest of the park except for wetland. And it's like the activities happening at the same time each day in between that like 11 to 1 over the lunch hour period on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with the peak here at 11 or 1 p.m. on Sunday. So it would have been possibly after an vandalism event. So this was a little bit suspicious. But then I also wanted to look at what kind of communications were happening to the external only. And then there was the same thing. There's a lot of activity, it seems like, in this like over the lunch hour period is what I call it, like that 11 to 1. But here you see there's a very large spike on Sunday at 11 a.m., which to me would indicate that there was some major events, say the police may have came, or something has happened, and so the members in the park are texting externally outside of the app and out of their groups. So with our theories, we wanted to just confirm that the cluster 32 that we have claimed as the bodyguards had 0 here. They had 0 communication, which would indicate that they're not using the app because they are, they're not using the app because they are leading Scott around the park. And then that cluster 49 is somebody who, or a group or somebody who may be staking out the exhibition hall. And then this here would indicate that something has happened and the people are sharing that information. And then I was going to show really quick our, let's see here, our detailed plan for our next steps. And so we have a team meeting.
Joe,
oh,
yeah, you're not sharing it right now. Can you pull it to share screen?
Oh, it's not sharing. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's sharing your Tableau, but it's not sharing the Word doc.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Hold on. Okay, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, sorry guys. So here's our detailed plan. We have a group meeting, our standing meeting coming up on Wednesday. We will be doing the draft storyboard for the mini challenge 2 and working on the grand challenge coming up. And that is all I have.
Great. I will stop recording.